Good morning everyone and welcome back to a brand new video of Fox on Popcross Studios. Today we'll be checking out episode 8 of Fear of the Demon Hunters. What if dinosaurs were ice demons? Let's hop in and see what he can chill out.
One of my favorite kinds of things to design is dinosaur-like creatures and any icy kind of creatures. So, in my ongoing series, Fear of the Demon Hunters, I made sure to build up to an episode where I had a good excuse to have a bunch of prehistoric icy demon creatures. And that's where we're at today. They're not...
I guess you could call it your Ice Age?
technically all dinosaurs, but let's just go with it. There will be a previously on to catch people up who are new to this series or don't remember what happened last time, and I am very excited to be at this episode, so let's get into it, shall we?
Let's go!
Hit like
if you want. Subscribe if you feel like it. But either way, enjoy the show.
Previously, on Fear of the Demon Hunters,
Vivian
Soraya is on the run from the Predator Coalition of Demon Hunters while trying to hunt down the demon general, Zuphiathan. Vivian revealed to the Coalition's leader, Commander Tamika Wiggins, that Viv has demon powers, and that she is working with the former and now mostly depowered
top girl
demon queen, Fear herself, going by her true name, Arava. Viv believes Arava is on a path to redemption, as Arava is helping Vivian, along with fellow Coalition member Jax and the Capricorn-like Archangel Capri, to hunt down the demon generals that Arava once created.
That's right.
One of their greatest assets in this task is a powerful artifact that Viv is using, called the Demonitrix. The Demonitrix is stuck in Vivian's arm for the time being, and allows her to channel the bodies and abilities of other demons to use for her own means.
Which she actually gained remarkable control over ridiculously fast. As, like before, she had trouble barely using her own powers. Now she can use any demon.
The Coalition's leader, Tamika, had no issue with Vivian's demon abilities and the unfortunate things she did when she first acquired them, but working with Fear herself was too much for the commander to accept, hence this group having to flee the Coalition. Now, Vivian, Arava, Capri, and Jax are doing their best to kill Zuphiathan with Arava's help, in the hopes that it will prove she is now worth trusting and working with. Every member of this group, in fact, is trying to improve themselves and seeking some form of redemption for how they've acted in the past. Such as how Jax treated the now famous Coalition hunter Koshmara when she first acquired her own demon abilities years back, and Capri wanting to heal relations with his fellow Zodiac-themed archangels. They're doing this all while trying to protect their world from what Zuphiathan has planned. Let's see how their mission is going in Fear of the Demon Hunters, Episode 8. Vivian was anxiously bouncing back and forth on her toes outside Capri's cottage home, where she and her allies had been staying for the last few weeks. She wanted to get going and was hyping herself up by watching the latest news footage coming out of her home state of Colorado. A reporter, getting blown around by the wind, tried to report on the situation. This time of year, these beloved Colorado campgrounds are usually full of eager nature lovers, but a snowstorm even more fierce than we'd be likely to see in the dead of winter continues to rage on with no clear signs of stopping. Meteorologists are still baffled and have no explanation for how this could be occurring. Fueling more concerns are many cases of fake and scam footage being made and spread online, likely fabricated with artificial intelligence-generated images of monsters and beasts lurking in the storm. On the screen...
So people are taking pictures of the storm and thinking, this is clearly an AI-generated monster. Okay, no, I could actually see why they would think that.
Flashed a few silhouette images and videos of a flying creature swooping through the air over and around the campgrounds. True. Some of them may have been fake, but Viv knew they were most likely inspired by a real piece of footage. There was a demon in that storm. Zuphiathan was getting bolder about how he let his minions strike. If they let this go on much longer, demons would stop being a secret to the world, and who knows how much more fear that would instill in people, making them even more appetizing to the fear-hungry beasts. Viv shoved her phone in her pocket and called up to the home. "Are you guys coming? It's not getting any warmer out there." A second-floor window opened up and Arava leapt out. She got near the ground next to Vivian, but stopped before hitting, floating in a seated position.
"I've been ready for like an hour. I was just waiting for the boys."
Viv raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? So you weren't just messing around with my perfumes?"
What, you have perfumes? I didn't even know that.
Arava said, turning away.
Smell it.
Viv leaned closer to her and sniffed. Arava floated farther off.
Don't just sniff people, weirdo.
Viv chuckled. You can use them, Arava. It's not like I am. Just be honest about it. Capri had sneakily transported Viv and Jax back to their rooms in the Coalition a few weeks ago to get some of their stuff, and Viv had brought back her small collection of perfumes. She used to love all the different scents, but now was finding none of them compared to the fascinating things she smelled and experienced when she turned into various demons. Jax came out the front door in a thick coat and gloves, holding a large glowing warhammer, with Capri exiting behind him. I don't know, Capri. Maybe I should just stick with my bat. I love this thing, but it's still kinda heavy for me. Capri replied, I think you're ready, but it's your call. You need something you're as confident with as possible. I don't imagine we'll be facing only one demon today. Arava nodded.
Yeah, this is definitely a trap. Low visibility, large area being covered, it's on Vivian's home turf. Plus, it's probably an ice demon.
She muttered that last bit, knowing it would bring up flashes of Viv and Jax's deceased friend, Avery. Viv had covertly used her demon powers to save herself and Jax from the ice demon, Cryoarot, back when she was still hiding her powers, but only after it had killed Avery on that mission. Arava went on.
The point is, Zufai's definitely trying to get in our heads. No offense, but this one might be too dangerous. You know, for someone without powers.
She gestured to Jax. He set the hammer over his shoulders.
He can still
I may not have powers, but I'm still a demon hunter. I'll be fine. Plus, now I've got an angelic weapon. It's Torbos' old hammer before Cancelia made him a new one. He seemed like he was trying to sound confident, but there was clear hesitation in his voice. Arava muttered.
Yeah, a weapon you just said you were hesitant about using.
Capri interjected. Jax has proven himself to be a formidable fighter, and I sense we will need all the help we can get on this quest.
Agreed.
Zufaiathan is getting desperate to stop Vivian's progress with the Demonitrix and kill Arava. The first thing his minions will try to do is separate us. So long as we're able to, we must keep that from happening.
Yeah, don't fall for the Scooby-Doo tactics.
Stay calm, stay in contact, and give any explanation of your location that you can so that we can regroup. He tapped his earpiece, which they all had. Viv couldn't use hers when she shifted into demon form, but she could at least still communicate with Arava and Capri through mental demon links.
Good enough.
Vivian added, and if we see anyone from the Coalition, no getting in any fights with them, even if it's Clayton. Capri, Fear, and Jax all sneered and grumbled hearing his name, but they knew she was right. They had to at least try to play nice, even with Clayton. Viv continued. Plus, if things...
the dude may be an asshole, but still, we're not going to kill him.
...get really bad, I can always try out Plan S, because I think it'll work. None of them quite knew what that meant until it clicked in for Arava.
Are you talking about... Viv, I told you, that's literally impossible, and even if it wasn't, you're not ready for something that tough yet.
Viv crossed her arms and shrugged. No, we'll see.
No,
what is she talking about?
If you try it, it's literally a waste of energy. It won't work.
Viv smugly shrugged. Sure, whatever you say. Capri cut off their bickering to confirm they were...
Okay, I have an idea, but I'm not 10,000% on it, so I'm not going to say it.
...were all ready, and they all agreed they were. He teleported them to a place Viv hadn't been since the day Fear turned her into a demon. This time, she was ready to use her powers for good. The second they appeared in the woods, wind and snow pelted their faces. There was snow up to their knees, and they quickly realized just how limited their mobility would be. Through the rushing wind, Viv said, Okay, this is a lot. Maybe Arava had a point. Jax, since you don't have... Oh! She was interrupted by Jax's yelp as he was pulled under the snow. The rest of the group whipped around to see Jax's arm and his hammer flailing out of the snow as he was dragged off. Arava hovered higher up to get a better line of sight on him, then thrust her hand forward. Tendrils sprang out of the snow beneath her and sped after Jax. They nearly reached him when a screech echoed through the branches above. Arava looked up just as the black and blue talons of a frigid sky demon snatched her shoulders and swooped back up into the storm. Viv called after her to no avail. She turned to ask Capri what to do, but he had vanished. She called through her comms for him, but there was no response. Not from him, anyway.
Come on, Hunter, you could chat with your friends any old time. Why not get to know some of mine?
Viv ripped out her earbud and shoved it in her pocket. It figured Zufaiathan would try and cut off their communication. Viv was alone, unsure of which of her allies to go after. She thought about turning into one of the demons she'd used before, but knew that wasn't the best tactic here. Instead, she looked around frantically. She looked at the snow, the sky, the trees, until finally she saw a pair of beady, glowing eyes leering at her. The demon remained unmoving, just staring. It likely hoped Viv would be intimidated. The old her would have been. Instead, she started trudging towards it. "All right, I guess you'll have to do. Now get over here so I can get a better look at you."
And there it is. The first demon. I have no idea how you pronounce that name. Ooh.
Even though the demon wasn't moving an inch, it seemed the closer Viv got, the farther it got.
Looks like next we're dealing with some type of raptor.
"Come on!" she yelled at it, trying to pick up her pace in the thick snow. "Come get me already!" She knew she should have reached it by now. What was it doing? Viv looked at it more intently, then noticed something off about it. She stared through the snow and realized that what she had been certain was some kind of demon dinosaur silhouette was now just a collection of fallen trees. She knew she hadn't been wrong, though.
What?
It was messing with her head, and she didn't have time for it. Viv started panting to the point of hyperventilating. She thought back to every terrifying experience she'd ever had, bringing up her most horrific memories, and fueled them further with thoughts of her and her friends all dying. She pictured Jax being torn apart and the Coalition blaming her for bringing him into this. She could smell the fear spilling off herself as she heard, very faintly, the sound of thick footsteps behind her. She slowly turned, with her lip trembling, to see a frigid Cryolophosaurus demon leering down at her with those same
Cryolophosaurus, so that's what this thing is.
Beady eyes she'd seen moments ago, its teeth bared, staring at her. But Viv's scent instantly changed. She chuckled. "How gullible are you?" She looked its entire body up and down thoroughly. "That should be enough information. Demonitrix, do your thing." The green gem in her shoulder glowed, shining through her jacket, and her body started to transform. The demon hissed and looked down at its own arm, which was disappearing as Vivian's was warping and morphing. The demon got smaller and shrunk in on itself, as Vivian grew into nearly the exact shape the demon had been in.
Oh,
it
hell
completely
yeah!
vanished, and now Vivian was the demon, Cryophosaur. Because of how often Vivian had to allow herself to feel and release her own fears to use the Demonitrix and control the demons she channeled.
So that's what happens when she uses it on a demon that's still alive. Okay.
She'd learned how to actively bring up fear within herself and emit the scent that attracted demons. Once they were close, she could release the fear and act without its influence. It was very useful for tricking demons into lowering their guard. Now able to see far more easily through the snow thanks to her ice demon body, Viv found the trail that had been made by whatever had dragged off Jax. She stomped after it, trying to get a sense of what abilities she had in this form. Surprisingly, despite her size, she was able to walk along the top of the snow, making her that much faster. Unfortunately, she didn't seem to be able to stop the storm. Another demon must have been causing it. A thought shot through her mind of Jax already being maimed. She'd made herself think it before, but now it was causing genuine concern. She held on to the thought longer than she should have. Her foot suddenly twitched out in an odd direction as she marched after Jax, knocking her other foot and making her trip. She kept her balance, but barely.
Damn it, she tripped
the demon was trying to take back control. It was tough, tougher than any she'd commanded before, but she knew as long as she remained as present and conscious as possible, she could keep control. She found the only time demons ever got the better of her was when she got distracted with thought spirals or resisted any negative emotions that came up. As long as she stayed present, she should be fine. She continued stomping after Jax, letting any fearful thoughts that came up pass by without her latching onto them. Soon, she caught the faint scent of someone in fear through the trees ahead. She sped up, enjoying how gracefully this body could bound over the snow, until she reached what looked like a giant sphere of swirling snow and ice. It was at least 4 times her height.
Damn,
the faint scent of fear was unmistakably coming from inside it. She pressed her snout against it, and the spinning snow smacked her head away, with more force than she expected.
Damn.
She swung her head back and slammed it into the sphere.
I guess it is meant to be a protective area.
Face pressed ever so briefly inside, and she saw Jax, shaking but holding his hammer at the ready. A trail of blood was streaming down from his forehead. She then saw some kind of swimming dinosaur gliding through the sphere's edge towards Jax. She knew Jax was a good fighter, but she couldn't let him do this alone. Viv's head was shoved back out of the sphere by the swirling snow, and she stomped backwards. She got a good distance away, then charged right towards the sphere and leapt at it. She could feel that she was going to break through, when two sets of talons dug into her back from above and slammed her into the ground. She tried to scramble back to her feet, but the claws dug into her icy flesh and lifted her off the ground. She spun her head around and snapped her jaws at whatever creature was carrying her.
Is that Cryo Draco thing?
As she got higher and higher out of the forest, she felt the wind picking up more and more. The demon swung back its legs, then hurled Vivian forward. The wind was so strong it carried Viv into a twister of ice and snow. Her demon form spun through the air, barely able to make out anything around her. She suddenly felt something wrap around her ankle. She swung her teeth towards it, but saw it was a familiar small tendril. Trailing just behind her, with the appendage spawning from her stomach, was Arava. Viv suddenly heard Arava in her head.
That's you, right, Viv? That dumb bird is like a mix of terror air and cryo-rot. It knew getting me in the air limited the size of the tendrils I could make. It probably wants to keep us out of the way until the demons get Jax. Zephyathan's he's the weakest of us, and if he dies, we'll be a lot more distracted.
Viv's heart thudded thinking about Jax, but she kept letting the thoughts pass. She couldn't lose focus, especially not now. She tried contacting Copri through a demon link, but couldn't sense him anywhere. Viv considered transforming back to herself, then turning into this flying demon, but she wasn't sure she'd gotten a good enough look at it. If she didn't know what specific fear a demon was made to hunger for, then she had to at least have a clear image of what it looked like, or know its true name to deliberately transform into it. Plus, if she...
That is actually a pretty good twist or loop, condition, there you go, to use the Demonatrix. You either need to know what fate it is, what it looks like, or its true name.
Turned back to herself, Cryophazor would appear back on the ground under its own control, and likely go after Jax too. As she considered ideas, she felt the demon again struggling to take control of her. It was far more determined than any demon she'd controlled yet. But that also made her realize, if it was this powerful, it had to have some kind of other abilities she hadn't discovered yet. She closed her eyes and focused on her demonic body. Her attention suddenly landed on her feet. They were tingling quite pleasantly as the snow rushed past her. Instinctively, she stuck a foot out as if she were about to step onto the ground. Surprisingly, she got a footing in the air. Some of the snow swirling around her formed into a platform for her to stand on.
Oh, that's awesome!
She stepped out with the foot Arava was latched onto next, and another platform appeared. Viv was able to stop them both in midair, though with Arava
so it can sky step
being pulled forward by the wind. Viv gently bit the tendril wrapped around her leg, holding it in her mouth. Arava gripped it and pulled herself forward towards Viv's head. She clambered onto Viv's neck and held tight. Viv stepped forward, making one platform disappear and another form. She started sprinting at an angle down towards the ground. They emerged from the thickest twister of snow and headed back for the trees. But Viv suddenly felt the bizarre sensation of tendrils bursting out of her back. Ooh. She thought, "Oh, ew, what was that? It feels really weird and also kind of nice at the same time."
No, don't say that.
She turned her head to see Arava sending two tendrils up from Viv's back, lashing at an oncoming soaring ice demon. Arava thought,
"You like that feeling? You get weirder every day, Viv. It's easier to make tendrils come out of you than out of myself, but it still might not be enough."
Talons were headed towards them. Arava managed to wrap them in her tendrils and yank them aside. The demon spun out, but still swung its beak down and breathed a beam of ice across Viv's back towards Arava. She leapt off.
Okay, hold on. I know he's not done with it yet, but that is some good-looking silhouette all there on the top. It's like, here's the big bad of the current area, but you can barely see him.
Viv and started floating beside her, fighting the violent winds. Arava's tendrils were frozen and the demon shattered through them, soaring on ahead of Viv before whipping around to come at them again. Luckily, the ice now breathed along Viv's back felt good in this form. She charged towards the sky demon, leapt at it, and chomped into its neck, letting herself and it fall down towards the forest. "Hold on a little longer, Jax," Viv thought. "We're coming for you."
Come on, guys. It's a 3v2, technically.
Meanwhile, Jax was getting so...
Whoa, look at that. And the second to last is actually a titanopod.
Cold that he could hardly even feel his legs. His hands were clenched so tightly.
I know that's probably not the actual... Nope, there it is, down there in the bottom. Maga... I'm not actually going to try saying that.
Around Torbos' hammer, that he felt they may have already frozen around it. He whipped his head, searching through the swell of the snow sphere around him, looking for where the demon may emerge next. He'd gotten enough of a look at it to know it was like a small ankylosaurus-like creature, but all it was doing was freezing him more and more, and occasionally leaping across the sphere to smack him around before vanishing again. He was doing his best to do the same fear-releasing practice Viv used for the Demonatrix, but the colder he got, the harder it became to think he'd get out of there. He hadn't been this cold since the day he lost Avery, and Zuphiathan must have known that when he'd made these demons. He suddenly saw a human-like figure silhouetted on the other side of the sphere. Viv, is that you? I could really use a hand here. But the figure slowly stepped through the ice and snow and revealed it was Avery. Jax's late friend stumbled towards him, frostbitten.
Yeah, no, definitely a memory or some kind of spirit. Definitely a trick, a lie.
With ice dangling from her head and hands. Jax just turned away from her, shouting at the demon. What do you think I am, an amateur? You can't trick me. You're not the first demon I'm gonna kill, and you won't be the last. His words sounded more confident than he actually felt. A cold, bony hand landed on his shoulder. It turned him towards her, and she was directly in front of his face. Tears poured from her lifeless eyes and froze on her cheek. Viv could have saved me, Jax. She could have saved both of us if she hadn't been so scared of how you'd react to her being a demon. If you'd just been nicer to Koshmara, Viv wouldn't have been so scared of you, and I'd still be alive. His body shook even more violently, with sadness churning in with his fear.
Oh, damn.
I know that, but all I can do is be better now. He shoved his shoulder into the false form of his old friend and swung his hammer through her, shattering her to pieces. To his shock, a shriek came from below him as his hammer hit the snow beneath. The demon leapt out of the snow below him, writhing, with a huge dent smacked into its head. The snow sphere started to fade and sputter as the demon tried to leap back into it and swim away. Jax lunged forward and swung his weapon again, right into its back. He shattered icy spikes off it, and it collapsed to the ground. Once again, it tried swimming off, but he swung up one more time. He slammed it into the beast's neck. The angelic weapon smashed right through it, and the demon burst into snow and ash.
Insta-kill.
The rest of the swirling snow sphere came floating down, and Jax could finally see some of the trees around him again, through a still raging snowstorm. He felt good having killed that demon, but his eyes slowly panned up to what he thought was a nearby tree at first, to see a new set of eyes leering down at him. He would have thought he'd panic as he saw another frigid beast ready to torment him, but he was too overcome with pride for having killed that first demon to be afraid. In the midst of the blizzard, a quote came to mind that both he and Capri were fond of. He drummed his freezing fingers along his weapon and said, "The calm within the storm is where peace lives and breathes." The frilled panels along this long-necked Amargasaurus demon's neck flared out and started to glow. They began to flash at fast, random intervals, bouncing off the snow and blinding Jax. He tried blinking through it at first, but realized that was useless. So he just closed his eyes and aimed his head towards the demon. The light was bright enough to beam through his eyelids.
It's like that one icy dinosaur Pokemon.
So he could still tell where the demon was.
Something.
He marched forwards as calmly as he could, swinging his weapon. He could hear the faint footsteps of the demon as it was backing away. He tried speeding up as the flashing lights got brighter. Through the snow, something wrapped around Jax's ankle. Before he could swing at it, he was ripped off his feet and raised upside down into the air. He wanted to open his eyes, but knew it must just be the demon's tail. He swung his hammer around him, trying to hit anything but not making any strikes. A voice echoed out.
"You are a perfectly frail liability for my demons to exploit, boy.
Damn it.
Your friends may as well have brought you here just to die."
Jax ignored him. He stopped swinging his weapon and just remained still.
Damn it,
"I am calm as the storm rages around me," he said quietly.
"Oh, what? Are you reading fortune cookies to relax yourself? That's adorable,"
bellowed Zuphiathan. Jax hung still for a moment, certain a time to strike would come.
"Zuphiathan, we're gonna take your head and mount it on the wall."
The flashing lights got brighter, and he realized it was because he was moving closer to the demon's neck. He waited a little longer, now feeling the flashing lights against his whole body like a pulse. He swung his weapon forward with his arms stretched out as far as possible. The end of the hammer struck something hard. He suddenly dropped into the snow and the lights stopped. He leapt up and opened his eyes, ready to strike again. But what he saw wasn't a wounded demon. Fallen in the snow ahead of him was Copri, wheezing with golden blood spilling from a thick crack running along his head.
Oh, no!
Jax trudged forward quickly in the snow and dropped down next to him. No, Copri, I'm so sorry. I thought it was the demon. Copri's eyes looked terrified as his blood dripped down his face, falling from his nose in a consistent stream.
That's
I
not
should
good.
have known working with humans would get me killed. I should never have trusted you, Jax.
Jax immediately
Wait a
sighed
minute.
in relief. Ugh, God, stupid illusions. You almost got me this time.
Yeah,
Jax
no.
whipped his weapon around
Had me there in the first half as well.
and smacked it right into the head of the demon behind him. It groaned angrily and started flashing at him again. But before closing his eyes, Jax had seen where the next closest part of its neck was and swung at it, hitting
An
it dead
illusion
on.
demon.
He cracked one of its frills and the lights dimmed enough for him to see through them. You're not getting who I am, Zuphiathan. I might not be an archangel or the demon queen or have the demonatrix, but that's never been a requirement to fight demons. He smacked the beast again and again.
If
I've
anything,
trained
it was
and
just
fought with the
boost.
coalition that's been killing demons for decades, and now learned even more from Copri, Viv, and Arava. So go right on ahead and keep underestimating me. It just makes my job that much easier. He smacked the demon's leg and it collapsed to the ground. He stepped to where its head had fallen and raised his hammer again. I have peace in the storm. I have strength in the storm, and I sure as hell can slay demons in the storm.
Hell yeah,
He
Jax.
slammed his hammer down and once again watched with pride as a demon burst into snow and ash before him.
That's
Its
two
remains
down.
floated off in the breeze. He turned back and saw the false Copri fade away too. That's seriously all you've got for me, Zuphiathan? Jax called confidently, but still freezing sore and exhausted. Suddenly, a massive form crashed through the storm above and slammed into the ground, making Jax fall back into the snow. He scrambled away from it. Okay, I was bluffing. I really could use a minute here. He blinked through the snow to see two more demons. But one was a flying beast that was now starting to wither and fade beneath the feet of Cryophazor. Luckily, he quickly noticed the familiar green gem beaming on her shoulder, and a familiar figure clutched to her back.
Oh yeah, the crew's back together. Only one more demon left to technically kill.
Arava floated down off Viv, who
Nope, correction. I didn't know we would have a Cybertooth, aka Smilodon.
remained in her dino demon form. Arava looked Jax up and down.
You handle your demon okay?
He raised
Handles
his chin.
two.
Got two of them, actually. Fear's eyes widened slightly through the ripping winds.
Wow, good job. Avery would probably be impressed too.
He paused, then replied,
Thanks.
Thanks. It's still weird when
Damn
you
it,
try
I
to be
knew he
nice,
was
though.
gonna say that.
She snarled.
Hey, at least I'm trying.
I'm kidding. I'm sort of kidding. But where's Copri? Arava shrugged.
We don't know. Viv says he disappeared after you did, and we can't get in touch with him.
Jax and Arava both got onto Viv's back, and she raced through the woods, searching. They hadn't expected to smell any fear from him, as Copri was arguably the most fearless. But soon, both Viv and Arava caught a scent. Viv thought it might be
Oh?
a camper, or maybe even
Okay,
a coalition
let's
hunter,
see.
but either way, it was the only lead they had. They raced towards it, and the scent got stronger and stronger, until a flying figure flopped through the air towards them. They could quickly tell it wasn't a demon. Arava spawned tendrils out of the snow to catch Copri, as Viv skidded to a halt before him.
We got him.
Jax and Arava leapt off. One of his
Wait a minute. That horn. Oh. That's not a regular Smilodon. That's Copri's sister.
wings had a massive gash through it, right near his back, and he had claw marks all across his face and arms.
The Leo
Jax
demon.
knelt in the snow, fairly confident it was actually his angelic ally this time. He grabbed his hand. Hey, come on, Copri, we're here, we got you. What are we dealing with? Copri blinked through a bruised eye.
Ow. Got a
I
hot.
know it's not her, but I still can't beat her.
Oh, it's me, all right, brother.
A growling voice
Yep,
carved through
called
the
it.
snow. Viv, Arava, and
Damn
Jax
it.
all turned to see what at first looked like an icy humanoid saber-toothed tiger demon. But it was quickly clear to them all who Zuphiathan wanted Copri to think this was. She marched closer.
You tore our family apart, Coppery. You were our leader. You should have united us. And instead, you bludgeoned my head in like I was vermin.
Hey, he tried to bring you back together, but no, you decide, nah, burn humanity to the ground.
Hammer in his hands and readied to swing. Oh, give it up already. Coppery knows you're not Leora, and we all do too. Arava yelled.
You think I wouldn't know if you were one of my original creations? Nice try, Zuphiathan. Your work is as shoddy as ever.
She continued, marching closer.
Whether I am or not, am I wrong, Coppery? You tore your family apart, and soon you'll do the exact same thing with this new little band of miscreants.
Arava turned to Vivian.
I've heard enough. You hungry, Viv?
She roared eagerly, leapt over Coppery, and stomped through the snow towards the false Leora. The Sabertooth sprang high into the trees above, then shot down toward Vivian's back. Arava sent 3 of her tendrils smashing into the demon's side, but even still just barely knocked her off course. The Sabertooth bumped off Viv's leg, landed in the snow, but quickly whipped around and leapt at her, with fangs bared. Viv let the demon bite into her. It hurt, but it also gave her a shot at chomping down with her much larger maw onto the demon's back. Viv thought she'd be able to rip her foe off easily, now holding the Sabertooth in her own teeth, but its fangs remained dug into her leg. The Sabertooth swung a claw around and slashed across Vivian's eye, then ripped her leg out from under her, making her collapse into the snow. Even if she wasn't really Leora, this beast had the strength of a demon general. Coppery tried to get back into the fight. Jax had been ready to run in, but saw Coppery and leapt back down, gently putting a hand on his chest. "Stay down, man. We got this."
"No, this beast was clearly made for me. I have to handle it myself.
Come on,
I can't
man.
let you all fight my battle."
Jax held his hand more firmly, keeping Coppery
You're
down.
not alone.
"I thought you weren't working yourself to death anymore. We're not fighting for you because you're pushing us to like you did with the Archangels. We all know you're better than that now.
Exactly.
We're helping you because you're our friend. Stay down. We
Your
got
friend
this."
and family.
Coppery let Jax's words sink in. He stopped
We can
trying
do
to get
this.
up and just looked anxiously at the fight. The Sabertooth demon got itself under Viv and double-kicked her so hard she flew up into the branches above.
Ooh,
Before
that's
falling
kinda
too
hot.
far, she summoned snow platforms under her feet to stand in the air and get her bearings. The demon didn't give her time and just leapt at her legs again. She barely ran out of the way. She thought to Arava, "This would be the perfect time for me to try Plan S, don't you think?" Arava
What's
was
Plan
helplessly
S?
lashing tendrils at the demon, who just carved through them with her claws and teeth anytime they got close.
Viv, Plan S isn't anything. It'll just be a waste of time. That's not how the Demonatrix works.
The Sabertooth managed to snatch Viv's neck in its claws, whipped
You know what? Screw it. I'm curious. What's Plan S? Do it. Do Plan S.
her over its head and hurled
Show
her back
us.
into the snow, just in front of Coppery and Jax. She quickly got up and shook off the snow. Arava floated down next to her. Viv thought, "Well, we've got to try something. We're not going to beat her like this." The Sabertooth knew it had the upper hand and started strutting towards them again with full confidence. Zuphiathan had gone all out with this beast.
Screw it. Do it.
Had to be
Give it a
nearly
try.
as strong as him. Jax readied up his hammer, standing next to his friends. "Well, we're not letting it get to Coppery. It's 3-on-1. We can do—" Suddenly, there was a sound like a small
Ooh.
eruption in the distance behind their foe. She turned, and Viv could just barely make out the sight of 2 purple streaks of light that burst through the storm towards the demon. It shrieked and swung a claw at something, but was snatched and suddenly shot up into the air with whatever this thing was. In nearly an instant, the Sabertooth was fired back down from the sky and exploded into the earth. The purple
Holy.
streaks crashed back down right on top of her, and a shockwave of snow rolled into the group's faces. Viv took a timid step closer, getting her large demon form between her friends and whatever this thing was. She suddenly saw black ash rush through the air past her. Whatever this was, it had slain the fake Leora in seconds. With the Sabertooth demon slain,
Well, I guess that kitty's down for the count. Down for the count.
the storm almost instantly faded. The clouds parted and the last of the snow was coming down, just concealing a
storm's
surprisingly
defeated.
short figure from clarity. Viv could just make out the silhouette as it was transforming. A tail was shrinking away back into its body. Its long, floating, smoky hair was retreating to shoulder
Oh,
length. The
wait.
purple glow coming from the being's eyes was just disappearing as the last of the snow cleared. And Vivian could finally
It's
see
her.
the Coalition's most famous hunter, Koshmara Naroi. Mara turned to look at the odd group. Viv was excited. She'd never seen Koshmara use her powers like that up close in person. Viv grinned with her large, toothy demon mouth and turned to the others, thinking, "It's her! It's actually Koshmara! But then her eyes met Arava's. Fear herself looked terrified. Viv looked back at Koshmara, who was staring directly at the Demon Queen. That was when it sunk in. Mara wasn't here for Zoophiathan.
Oh. Oh, damn. Okay. Gotta say, black ice. Very nice. Oh, I know that excitement, man.
Besides that, that's all
I
for
feel
today,
it.
except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is actually an expansion on the quote that I used in Jax's part of the story. Not the Seneca quote, but the other one. And it's a little long, so I'm going to actually read this one out.
Alright.
It's by Jada DeWalt, who said, "The calm within the storm is where peace lives and breathes. It is not within perfect circumstances or a charmed life. It is not conditional. Peace is a sacred space within. It is the temple of our internal landscape. We are free to visit it whenever we seek sanctuary. Underneath the chaos of everyday living, peace is patiently awaiting our discovery. Go within."
Now that's actually a very good line. Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.